Good morning and welcome to BD TV Roundtable, where we discuss issues affecting our society and how it affects us too as people, as Nigerians. Today we'll be looking at two issues. One is the continued killings in Benue State. And the other issue, of course, is the introduction of the e-collab system on the Lekki-Epe corridor by the Lagos State government in a move to regulate the operations of petroleum trucks on the route. We recall what Papa used to be like, and I think the Lagos State this time around is trying to avoid the Lekki-Epe Express Road turning into another Papa. And as usual today, I have with me to discuss these issues, Mr. Odinaka Anodu, the Deputy Editor of BusinessDay, as well as Mr. Chukwuroko, Assistant Editor here in BusinessDay. Gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I've said in my introduction, today we'll be looking at the killings in Benue State. It's been going on and on and on and on. It seems as if, I don't know whether there's a solution to this. I really don't know, but we're going to discuss it today. Let's say this. Under former President Muhammadu Buhari, for 8 years, we saw what would look like sustained killings in Benue State. I recall the particular incident where the former governor of Benue State, Otom, had to run 100 kilometers and what have you, just to try to save his life when he was being attacked by terrorists and what have you, or S-men of the various names that they call them. And so the president was in Benue State on Wednesday to condole with the families of those who have lost their life. And another promise has been made. But are these promises going to, bring about some kind of solution that we hope to see in Benue State? So Odinaka, let me start with you. Like I said, under Buhari, we saw several killings in Benue State. And in the last 2 years of President Tinubu, we are also seeing the same thing. Maybe I should ask Odinaka, is there any hope for the Benue State people that this will ever stop?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, first of all, we need to look at the problem first before I answer that question. The issue is what exactly is the major cause of the crisis in Benue. The crisis, somebody said that the crisis in Benue started in 1942. I'm not too sure about that, but a historian mentioned that. So, and it's basically the problem, a problem of, people call it farmer header class, but I think it's more than that. And that problem has been on for a long time. And that problem is the fact that headsmen and farmers are contending. Benue is the food basket of the nation.
Yeah.
So the majority of the Benue people are farmers. And on the other hand, headers too are struggling for land. So they the nature of the Fulani, I'm not trying to profile them, but because they are the majority, they are mostly in the business of herding.
Yeah.
So now the major problem is that you have your cattle. I have my farms, and you take your cattle to my farms. So your cattle, because you're not ranching, your cattle drinks my water or drinks the community water, and at the same time your cattle eats part of my farm, takes over my farmland. So the people of Benue feel that herders are trying to take over their land, because how can you come into people's farms and then begin to vandalize things in the farms? Your cattle begin to begin to take control, complete control of someone else's farm. I think that's the major problem there. So some people argue that I'm coming to answer your question, but it's very important that we also look at some of the the major cause of that problem. So now, whether there is a hope for that is actually the question that should be thrown at the government, because I haven't seen any sincere um, strategy that is targeted at solving that problem. And the sincere strategy is this: must not be one-sided. There was an attempt by Otom and the House of Assembly to solve that problem, but I think it was one-sided, because Autumn, they enacted a law and they didn't care about the other side, which they are the headers. So now you've enacted a law that will protect your people. You also have to consider the government, the federal government particularly, has to understand that they need to come in on the side of headers. One, the headers have to ranch. Don't need to take, I mean, this is an old method where you take your cattle from Abuja to Lagos. I mean, how can people be going through that kind of thing? Even the headers themselves, they are human beings. So you don't tell me about culture. There is no culture in the world that permits anybody to suffer and go through this kind of things. You move cattle from one place to, so start ranching. But you know, most of them, and again, incidentally, most of the cattle are owned by big men who don't want to ranch. So the government has to force them. That's where they should come in, or support them if the federal government certifies that they do not have the money. The federal government has to come in. So that's why I'm saying that any solution has to be both sides. I mean, you have to look at both sides. Don't just enact a law and make it look like the other side is not, because you might also understand that yes, the argument is that herdsmen are foreigners in Benue, but the truth of the matter is that many of them have lived there for many years, so you have to also take them into consideration. They are human beings. So, and what you should do is that they need to begin to ranch, but the government has to come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dina. Yeah, they need to begin to ranch, and the government has to come in. I think this was part of what former Governor Tom was trying to do when they came up with that law that says you can't move your cattle around town. I mean, you just have to ranch. But I don't know, when you say government has to come in, maybe Mr. Uruka should come to you now. How can government come in here? Because I recall this is what Autumn tried to do. There was some form of resistance, and somehow it didn't quite work. How can government come in to help here?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Before we talk about whether government should come in or not, let us first of all try to understand that herding or cattle rearing is a sort of business. And if it is business, it should be treated like any other business. If I become a property developer today, I don't just go into somebody's land and say, oh, I think this place is in sight. Let me build a house and start selling. What do I do first? I buy the land because it's not mine. So this cattle rearing is business. So if there's anything like ranching or no ranching, for instance, which is the best global best practice, let the herders or the owners of the cattle come to wherever they want to do and buy land and set up whatever they call their ranch. So that is exactly what the thing that brought them, that have been bringing them, the conflict between the herders and the farmers and even the community people. Because if government is insisting that there should be ranching, like Tinubu went there last Wednesday and told them that your people should donate land for these people to ranch or to do ranching. Do you just give out your land for an estate developer, for somebody who wants to farm, or somebody who wants to settle on your land? You just give it to him. Let them buy. I'm sure that by the time owners of those cattle subscribe to buying land to do their ranching, it will help to lessen this friction. It will help to lessen this tension. But it is unfortunate that people will just come from nowhere. If you ask me, I think this problem in Benue is beyond herder-farmer clash. because they shouldn't be killing women. They shouldn't be killing children.
Mm.
You come into a place in the night. Who does ranch? Oh, sorry, heading in the night, and wipe out, decimate a whole community in the name of say you are looking for land. It's land grabbing by default. It's the land grabbing by another name. But the truth, however, remains that these people don't want any kind of like negotiation. Let us do it peacefully and all that. It's clear land grabbing attempt. And this will, because they put up resistance, you now come in your hundreds, in your thousands, to come and wipe up a whole community. This thing have festered, if you ask me, in my view, whatever is happening in Benue have festered, have lasted this long because we attach very little importance or value to human life. If it were a country where citizens matter to the government, a place where human capital is seen as a productive factor or economic factor for production, they should have put an end to this. But you find a situation where so many people were killed. I think you are alleged that up to 200 people were killed. And then the president of a country is giving date when he will go there. Rather than a prompt action that will just, go there and make a statement, tough statement that will instill fear in whoever is coming to do that kind of thing again.
Okay, so, let's go back to Mr. Odinaka. The president was there on Wednesday, and clearly is calling for the two sides to reconcile, to find a way to, come together and see how they can resolve the issue. I don't know, Odinaka, I'm going to ask a very straight question. Are you satisfied with President outing in Benue on Wednesday?
The president went there to douse tensions, and but the truth of the matter is that I'm not satisfied. But let me also clarify a point. There is no way you can solve this crisis. So it's very easy for us to sit in Lagos and say, go and buy land. It's not that easy. It's very complex now. The problem has become complicated in Benue. So that's why I said the government should come in. We know that cattle rearing is business. No doubt about that. But at this point, that's gone beyond that. So if you tell them to just go, that was exactly the way it was treated in the last administration. And we're beginning to see the results now. If you want to make a law, that is where the government comes in. Why do we have a government in a nation? Government is, you come in as a go-between when people are in crisis to settle, which is why I'm against what the president do. Don't tell people to donate their land. Will you donate your land if you were from Benue, from Yewata? So the problem is that the role of the government in this is that you have made a law. All you need to do is to persuade. There are owners of cattle. Persuade them to ranch. Force them to ranch. The government can actually do that. Those who do not have money among them, because there are some cattle rearers who are also Fulanis themselves, you support them. Because there's already a crisis. So, but if you sit down in Abuja or Lagos and say, let them go and buy land, the problem will keep escalating. Secondly is that you need to look at the history of this crisis, starting from the northeast down to the north central, northwest. I've read part of that history, and the professor when I traveled to Sokoto, the professor in Sokoto who has done serious studies about Fulani has also opened my eyes. Those of us in the south here don't understand that problem. I traveled from Abuja to Sokoto then, and it was a very exciting eye-opener, because Fulani, let me tell you the genesis of this crisis. According to what I've read and what he said, they are agreeable. So sometimes Fulanis and their cattle move into communities. Remember, several years ago, these crises were not very frequent. So you see some Fulani herdsmen in the east. In fact, neighbors, everybody will even be giving them water, food, and all those things. So how did it escalate? He said, which I agree, that some communities several years ago in several parts of Nigeria, some communities actually began to force, because of the way, the nature of what they do, the model that they take their cattle from one place to another. So their cattle were infringing on people's farms. So some people's community water. So at a point it became a problem for several communities. So several communities chased them away. There was this kind of campaign in some parts of Nigeria to begin to chase them away because of the kind of crisis they were creating. So which was right. If you come to my farm and you take over, you eat my cocoyam, your cattle eat my cassava, everything, I'm going to chase you away. So at a point, it now became, this is exactly what happened in the northeast and northwest. This rise in banditry is also part of the reasons. Fulani feel, whether it is right or not, that now even some communities in the north began to chase them away and kill them because they are very, they are stubborn. Sometimes when you chase them away, they don't go. So communities now began to put up resistance. So sometimes they will kill cattle. Most times, these things that happen in Benue are revenge. Revenge of 10 years ago. If you do a serious studies on this, you understand. So because of that resistance that communities were putting up, some Fulanis were killed, some cattle were. Because I remember in Oka some years ago when we were in school, there was a time something happened and Fulani people were taking cattle. Students had to take take a cow from there and kill. So it was frequent in some communities, taking their cattle in 10s, in 20s and all that. So they got angry at a point because again, they said that when they take their cases to the police station, the police people will take money from them and still don't deliver justice to them. So they were, even the judiciary, some of the Fulanis, according to that history, will be presented in court. At the end of the day, they won't get justice. So these things you see here are actually revenge. They don't forgive.
But Odinaka, we've heard story. I mean, maybe allegation, what have you? A story that the people who are coming in to kill people are not Nigerian Fulanis.
Yeah, because they connect each other, and that's where the issue. Yeah, they connect each other.
Because I want to ask, is it that our military cannot stop? If, for instance, if truly there are foreigners coming in to kill Nigerians, I mean, does it mean that we do not have the capacity to stop foreigners coming in to kill Nigerians, Mr. Roko? Because this has been ongoing for several years now. Is it that we don't have capacity? For instance, the Nigerian military does not have the capacity to stop this thing?
Thank you. Sure. I think even the idea of saying that foreigners are coming to kill our people and walk away is an indictment on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's an indictment particularly on those who are saddled with responsibility of maintaining peace and keeping us safe.
Yeah,
because
defending the territorial integrity
of if you say foreigners are coming, how did they come? How? I want to tell you that if they don't have local collaborators, they cannot come. So, before anybody comes to your house, even an armed robber comes into your house, there must be somebody that is telling him, you see this house, you see this house. Armed robbers don't enter any house anyhow. So, I want to believe that these people have local collaborators, and these local collaborators are these people that are being accused of seeking for land to grab. Because I cannot just understand how people from Niger, for instance, or Chad, or any of the neighboring countries can come, kill. How do they live? How do they live after the action? After doing what they did? Yeah. But I have said it before that why this thing has persisted up to now, whether it is in Benue, or in Plateau, or anywhere where this kind of thing is happening, is because government has failed in its duty of protecting lives and properties.
Quite unfortunate. Government has
very, very unfortunate. Because we were asking whether anybody was satisfied with Tinubu's visit to Benue State. I, for one, it was a disappointment. Because if the president of a country is coming because I have issues, I expected him to go with solutions, not to make suggestions.
Went there to play politics.
And pushing the thing back to the people. And these are people who you know are helpless. So going there and asking them to find a solution to your problem is a case of government abdicating its duties. Government running away from responsibilities. Then if you're asking the governor, you were not telling the governor you were not elected to come and bury your people, what is the federal government? If the subnational cannot solve the problem, what is it that the president or the federal government has all the power to say, do this and it is done? Because somebody is minding what is going to happen tomorrow for his own personal interest.
Quite unfortunate.
Because I know that if the federal government wants to solve this problem, brutal action of this nature needs brutal solution.
Okay, fine. Fine. But I think we must still, you know, for whatever it is, we must still acknowledge the fact that the president went there. At least his presence in the Benue State alone doused tension. No matter
it depends on what you mean by dousing tension.
You
Those
know,
people who are responsible for these actions were also there. So if there was no strong statement coming from the federal government, it will embolden them.
Let's look at the governor of Benue State. Yes, I seen earlier. I do not know whether you are, you know, satisfied with the way the man has been going about it. For instance, on the day the president went, he declared a public holiday, and I think that many people feel that, look, this was not necessary because the president was not a celebration. It was supposed to be a day of mourning.
Yes.
And then you line up those
children under the rain, according to them.
So I don't know what you have to say about that.
But again, before I say something about earlier, I think we need to talk about solutions. You know, one of the things that probably the federal government must do, that's why I said government at this level of crisis, is the fact that the federal government must go back and begin to look at registration of cows and the ownership across some of these food belt states. You know, because one of the problems is that how do you give a Fulani herdsman 100 cows and the guy will trek from a local government in Benue State to another government in Adamawa? How will you do that? That's reckless. If you do a business like that, you should be in jail. That's what the federal government should do. Enroll all the cows, cattle. We don't have enough. What the Ministry of Agriculture gives us as data on cows and cattle is usually old data. So make sure you register them and register the ownership. Know those who own them first. If a major general owns 100 cows and then the person doesn't want to, I did a story some time ago about. Sorry, I supervised. We did a training and I supervised some journalists. So one of the story ideas was cattle rearing in Kano. So one of the things we did about tax, they don't pay tax to the government. Rather, in fact, governments they don't contribute anything to the economy of Nigeria. So register them, find out those
they do.
What I mean by they contributing,
the meat we eat, they are the ones that are
no,
healthy, so they contribute meat to the economy.
I don't eat their meat.
But you don't eat, others eat.
I'm coming. What I mean by
what I'm trying to say is that
they don't return anything to the government,
but they contribute to the economy.
I'm coming. They do. No, they contribute
they supply
to the economy.
Meat.
That was the corrected me, but the truth is that they don't contribute revenue to the government.
Okay,
however, what I'm saying is register them, know those who own them. Because it's very important, so that you can now compel them. What the government needs to do is to compel them to start ranting. The guys who own these cows are big men, not these Fulani herdsmen. They are big guys. And a major general will own 100, and most of them are military guys. The major general will own 200 cows and give it to someone. The boy, he may not be. Most times they are not paid. They are paid. There's a kind of agreement.
What you are saying is true, because when I was on youth service in Adamawa State, a cattle rearer came to the back of the house where I was living. When I came out, he was there with his cattle. I came out, then he looked at me and said, Anyamiriku? I said, yes. He said, Anyamiriku? I said, yes. He said, what are you doing here? I said, government sent me to this place. He said, government sent you from Onitsha, because they think that everybody is from Onitsha. Government sent you from Onitsha to this place? I said, yes. He said, this government do you bad. How can you come to this bush from Onitsha? You come to this bush. I said, yourself, do you know Onitsha? I said, yes. That was following a lorry from Onitsha to the north. But he felt that he was due for marriage, according to him, that he wanted to marry. Then he had now come to rear cattle for a big man. That when he carries this cattle about every year, you give him one. He will carry the cattle every year, he will give him one. And he needed 3 to sell the 3 and be able to marry wife.
Raise money to marry.
To raise money to marry. So he told me that by the time he does it for 3 years, then he will get 3 cows. He will sell the 3 cows and marry wife and return to Onitsha to do the business he was doing there.
So yeah, that clearly shows that
you see how
move around with the.
That's why the argument you are making that they should ownership has to be known. So that even in the case of if actually it is headers that are doing what is happening in Benue or any other part of the country, then we can now go back to say, oh, these are the people who own this. But the unfortunate thing is that nobody has arrested anybody responsible for this.
Another thing that the government must do, because we are talking about solutions, is the fact that there are several. If you've been to, I've been lucky to be in some of the states in the north. The states in the north, from Abuja to Sokoto, which is on the edge, are porous. Do you know this kind of policy we see here? You don't see them in the north. You can't see it in the north. So most places are porous. It's very easy for you to move from not Niger or those countries that are
like Niger,
even Chad, some of those countries, Sudan into Nigeria, come into Nigeria. So you can actually
freely like that.
Can actually come with 1,000 trailers into Nigeria
and go back like that.
That's the problem. Those guys come in. Fulani, like I told you, the crisis is such that once you kill a Fulani person or a header in a community, they will come to retaliate. They can retaliate in five years. Some of these things you see here are actually things that were done some years ago, or maybe recently. They go connect to their brothers, because Buhari told us that he has cousins
in Niger.
So you remember that kind of connection. And you've had a politician in the past say that if you do something to a Fulani, that he does not forget or forgive.
Which was true. It was a Rufai.
So that kind of thing. So this is exactly what's happening. So for addressing that's the problem. We are running away from addressing this issue.
Okay, I think with the president's visit and the marching order that the president has again given to the military guys and the security agencies.
So it's really believe that the president needs to tell IG to
make arrest.
But let's look at the implication that we've been talking about all the issue. But let's look at the implication in terms of the food supply. Benue State is the food basket of the nation. So much happening there in terms of farming, in terms of food production, with what is happening in Odinaka. What do you think will be the implication of this in terms of?
Well, the point is that some of the recent killings, there's a data that shows that since Buhari came, it was done by the Amnesty International, 10,000 something people have been killed. So out of that, more than half of the population, that 10,000 something happened in Kano, died in Benue, sorry. So you can see that more than 50% out of 10,000 plus died only in one state. And Benue is the food basket of the nation, the largest yam producer in the world. That state, that Benue, and it's just a market. So the point is that anything you do, and I imagine sometimes what could happen in America if a particular state is the biggest producer of food. That state, the American government cannot allow that state to collapse.
It will protect it at all costs.
So you're talking about food inflation. Today you go to the market, yam price is 1,000 naira. Tomorrow is 1,800. But you are destroying the
producers of
the state that produces the largest chunk of
Yeah,
lamb.
they say,
Yeah.
yeah, price 1,000 naira.
No, I'm just giving
No,
you
that's
an
not-
the last one I
example.
bought
I'm just
was,
giving you an example.
was
So,
5,000 naira.
I'm just giving you an
Yeah.
example. I know it's that. So the problem is that, and you know, one interesting about Benue is that Benue is blessed. That land is blessed, very fertile. In fact, they are growing both cocoyam, they are growing even guinea corn. Some of these things
Even
you don't
potatoes.
find. Potatoes. Big. So how can you allow your state to tear into crisis? That's the problem. We're not a serious nation. I'm just being very frank. We're not a serious nation. It's like, okay, just imagine, some time ago, you know, Niger Delta was feeding Nigeria. But do you know that the government allowed Niger Delta to degenerate into crisis? If you know, I'm very passionate about Ogoni crisis. You go to Ogoni today, Ogoni is still half cleaned, half remediated. And this is a kind of community that gives you revenue that you spend in Abuja.
That sustains the country.
We are not serious. Places where we get our money, where we get our sources of livelihood in Nigeria, are actually left abandoned. What the federal government is into now, the federal government wants to go back to Ogoni again to start getting oil, but they've not cleaned the environment properly. That's exactly what they are doing in Benue. Tinubu has come. You told them donate your land. They have now gone back. Farm fair, you know, pump and pageantry. Everybody has gone back. Benue will go back to crisis. Farmers have left. Most farmers are leaving. We've done stories about that. Most farmers are deserting the state, especially those villages. I know the problem. The World Bank did studies the other time and said 75% of Nigeria has 75% rural poverty. I know that rural areas are actually farm communities. So how do you have poverty in this kind of situation? When you have poverty in rural areas and people are still deserting rural areas because you're not protecting them. So that's terrible.
Where are they going to?
Most of them are, so that's the point. Most of them are even leaving the state. Some of them are going to the capital, Makurdi. But Makurdi should everybody be in Makurdi? So, you know, if people are moving to places like Makurdi now, you see the cost of living will also be rising.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the biggest implications. We're just flirting with disaster. That's it.
Mr. Roko, what do you think? Are we going to see? Are we going to see more Nigerians thrown into this? Nigeria thrown into more of a food insecurity.
I think that one is self-explanatory. You cannot abandon the source of your livelihood and expect anything better. Especially Benue, that everybody, it's just, there's no doubt about that. Incidentally, that state is very close to mine. We intermarry, a very peaceful, otherwise peaceful rural community. But having been thrown into disarray by the activities of people who are alleged to have come from outside, not even from within, what we expect to see is that more and more Nigerians will go hungry because the little they will be able to produce, those who are living in safe places, will come at a very exorbitant prices. And already we have food inflation that is already out of the out of the ordinary. So we are going to see more of suffering, more hunger in this country because of this. And if government were sincere with itself, it would ensure that whatever happens to Benue should be seen as a national problem. It is even this kind of place that government can consider a state of emergency.
Yes.
Not
and people are really wondering, by the way, people are really wondering why the federal government has not declared state of emergency.
Why is that? Why are those places not under emergency rule
compared to
rivers that have only political problem?
That's why we said that Tinubu went there to play politics.
Yes.
He went there and thank God for Thor
of TV.
Steve,
yes,
who came and told him the truth about what the
The Town of Tinubu said this is genocide. It goes beyond FEMA header clash.
Yes, Amnesty International or the world. And incidentally, what is exciting is sometimes that it is actually the outside world that tells you what you are doing in your country. So people from outside the world, what we call
now telling us,
Pope,
yes,
talked about it. Amnesty talked about it, and other people across the world talked about it. And the president of the nation is telling them to defend their land. So,
and then asking the IG to make arrests
so
for the first time.
If that place is governed by a PDP governor, you will probably see they did something different.
They may have thrown that place into, yes, that is ungovernable.
I think
the secretary to the government is from there. The governor is APC. So don't think they went there to play politics.
That's quite unfortunate, but we really do hope to see some reprieve coming for the people of Benue State, because it's quite sad to see women, children, and in fact pregnant women in some cases, being butchered and then killed, and then houses burned. And we can't. Benue is just a case that the Nigerian government must take seriously, apart from the issue of the food crisis that we're talking about.
Yeah, Joshua, people emphasis is mainly on food in Benue State. There, nobody's talking about shelter.
Shelter, where the people that have been displaced.
When these people come, they don't just kill and go; they will burn the houses. So even if you ask the people to return, they have no place to return to.
They're going to IDPs. That's where they're going.
So you find that two basic needs of man are at risk in Benue State.
Food and
you
shelter.
have food and shelter.
They're not at risk.
They're already down, not at risk.
It's quite unfortunate.
So two basic needs of man. So even those who are surviving there are living on the brinks. They know nothing to
my biggest
cheer
worry
about.
is that we're not taking this thing seriously.
They're not
politics about them.
And that's why we must say that it's time the federal government step in, more forcefully.
Go to Benue
and make sure that the place is kept
peaceful. Go to Benue temporarily for maybe a month.
For the sake of
Okay.
For the sake of peace.